So it is my pleasure now to reintroduce Father Laurence. Father Laurence is very well known as the founder of the World Community for Christian Meditation. He's been working with that organization, perhaps even as that organization, for some 20 years, and is the director of a global community of some 2,000 meditation groups in 114 different countries. I suspect that one needs meditation in order to be able to cope with that. Father Laurence is a Benedictine monk, and as I say, has vast experience in leading and inspiring people in meditation. And I think he has something to say to us this morning. So once again, Father Laurence. And Father Laurence will lead the silence at 12 o'clock.
Thank you again. Well, Walter Pater, I think, said that all art aspires to the condition of music. So I suppose that includes the art of talking, thinking, and all the other arts. And listening to the Bach, I think, is very extraordinarily enriching, uplifting, illuminating, and totally mystifying. What on earth is it saying? It totally transcends our ordinary language. How do you translate that Bach into language? You can't do. You could talk about all sorts of technicalities, I'm sure, but it's untranslatable back. And yet, it is a language as well. And yet I'm musically illiterate, but I could listen to that all day. I wish he hadn't stopped. Is he gone? Maybe he should come back. There is a sense of a syntax, a meaning, emotion, feeling, variety, and internal dialogue within the music. It's ways of expressing something of what language is. And then at the end, there's this feeling of a resolution. But what's being resolved, we don't know. We can't express in words, but it's very real and transformative. Although it's a very abstract language, it touches us physically, perhaps more thoroughly, more physically and interiorly than any other art or any other language. So, I don't know what to say after a feast of Bach like that, except it's kind of refreshing perhaps to think that Bach had 16 children, wasn't it? So he must have used a lot of language, keeping them quiet and educating them and dealing with their problems, and then going off to the church leaders in Leipzig to get his salary and negotiate for a better salary and so on. What's all the more remarkable is that he was able to integrate, of course, this extraordinary language and vision in music into his life, an ordinary life. He seems to have been in many ways a very ordinary professional musician. So maybe, although all art, all thought aspires to the condition of music, and students of consciousness often express the idea today that music came before language, before words, that we, in fact, can communicate, and did communicate better, more thoroughly, through music than we can through the agency of words. But anyway, if all art aspires to the condition of music, maybe music aspires to the condition of silence. So where do we go after the music? And I think this is something of an experience of the transcendence that we're trying to think about today and practice in the meditation. Transcendence is an idea, of course, that we find in religion, in philosophy, even in mathematics, transcendental numbers. I have no idea what transcendental numbers are, but they must be about transcending something. It expresses a basic human intuition that we must go beyond our perceived limits, and we're always running up against our limitations. We sometimes hide them, we sometimes fight them, we sometimes deny them, but we're always running up against them in one way or another, physically, psychologically, intellectually. And in order to become truly human, or more fully awake, we have to go beyond these limits. That's an idea. But meditation takes us beyond the idea of transcendence into the actual experience of transcendence. It's not abstract. Meditation is no more abstract than music, in fact. In simple terms, we transcend our habitual state of consciousness, of which the great limitation is our egoism, our self-centeredness. That's our big problem, our big limitation. And in meditation, we work on going beyond that limitation. Our egocentricity, where we see ourselves at the center of everything, and everything revolving around ourselves, and our own self-interest. In that perception of reality, when we see it from this egocentric perception, our self-interest seems logically to be the most important thing, to take precedence over anybody else's self-interest. And this is very subtle because there are very many different shades of egoism, many of them religious, and many of them hiding under the mask of altruism, for example. We like to do good things in order to feel good by doing good and having other people see us doing good. But you could say, well, we are doing good, but I'm getting something out of it, and that's why I do it. So meditation frees us most immediately from this prison of egocentricity, in the same way that music frees us from the labyrinth of words. It frees us from this maze of self-consciousness that we can never get out of by thinking about it, or even, in a sense, by trying to get out of it. We do, in a sense, resist this journey of liberation that all the great wisdom traditions acknowledge to be the most important purpose and meaning of human existence, to liberate ourselves from this prison of self-consciousness. We may fear the unknown quality of freedom. We often call for freedom, but we prefer to be locked up in a safe prison where we can speak about freedom. But increasingly, meditation persuades us, gentle art of persuasion, to let go of that fear and that duplicity and to fall into pure liberty of spirit. And progressively, this opens up our whole personality in new ways and our powers of awareness. May your minds be remade and your whole nature thus transformed. And the most important gift that meditation bestows through all of this long process is the peace of realizing the absolute priority of love, of other-centeredness rather than self-centeredness. In the Christian tradition, contemplation, meditation as a work of contemplation, is seen as a work of love. A work of love from both angles. A work of love in the sense that we are doing this work by taking the attention off ourselves. What else is love except putting our attention onto and into another and finding ourselves in that other? The dynamic of meditation is this pure work of attention. So to take the attention off ourselves is a work of love. But in the same tradition, we discover something in that new world. We discover that we are also the recipients. We are being influenced by, touched by an attention that is coming towards us. Maybe a model of that would be listening to Bach. We feel that we are encountering something. We're meeting Bach. In meditation, we are doing this work of love, and in doing it, as we go beyond our self-consciousness, our self-centeredness, we fall into love. We fall in love. We realize that we are actually being loved. What is love except this reciprocity of attention? And it's this reciprocity of attention that spins us into transcendence. So transcendence involves then union. The ego would like to think of transcendence as being able to transcend anything on which I am dependent, other people or God or circumstances or conditions, so I'd be completely independent. Don't need anyone. Autonomy, hyper-individualism. But that's a false idea of transcendence, which, again, all the wisdom traditions warn us against. And that brings us up against this essential limitation all the more painfully. But what meditation teaches us is actually that transcendence happens through this work of other-centeredness, because it leads us into union, into communion. Now, all of that may sound very mystical, and it probably is, but the test of it is how we live. Are we living out this experience of transcendence? And that's going to shape our politics, our culture, our economics, our education, the way we do medicine, and the way we do business. This experience of transcendence is going to determine how we see others who are different from ourselves. It's excellent that we started today with that reflection on the plight of the refugees. This mass migration of peoples that we're facing in the world today is an overwhelming challenge to our civilization and to the reality of our whatever spiritual practice or wisdom tradition we may claim to be following or think we're following. But the test of it is going to be, are we prepared to enter into union with those who are coming towards us in their plight, in their need? And where do we draw the line? Where do we say, so far, or even so many, and no more? So this experience of transcendence that we enter into in meditation has a very real relevance and sheds a very revealing light upon our way of living and interacting. Our modern culture, of course, puts up strong resistance to all of this. We're not conditioned by education, or even usually by religion, or by our ways of training in work, to accept this reality of transcendence into union. Or we may be encouraged to pursue this transcendence, to take up meditation, as if it were just another experience that we can slot into other interesting or experiences that we can call my experience. And that we justify it, or the time we give to it, or the money we may spend on it, because it gives us what we want, but leaves us in control, and above all, leaves us as observers of what we call transcendence. But in real transcendence, there are no observers. The experience of meditation is essentially nothing really that we can call experience in the ordinary sense. When we start to meditate and we look for an experience. And we judge our meditation on the basis of what kind of experience did I have today? Is it good meditation? Oh, very good today. Next week, tomorrow, this evening, the experience doesn't seem so good, and so we're constantly evaluating our experience within the meditation. If we're in a good tradition, if we have good collaborators, if we're in a good community that's shaping our learning of this art of meditation, then we learn to let go of that kind of evaluation, and eventually to let go of any idea that it is my experience at all. Because the transcendence is the transcendence of the ego, so where's my or mine anyway in that? I live no longer, but Christ lives in me, St. Paul says. It's a paradox, like the music, the language of music. I live no longer, but Christ lives in me. We may benefit from thinking and speaking of all of this, and this is something of a mystery, that we need to think about it and speak about it. But it's in the practice, only in the practice, in fact, that we can let go of the experience that we call mine and enter into the reality that brings us into our transformation of consciousness into the fullness of being. So I'd like to take the rest of this time now for us to meditate together, and maybe we can lead into the meditation with the full passage of St. Paul, that from which I took that quote at the beginning of this morning. This is how he puts it. My friends, I implore you by God's mercy to offer your very selves to him. The worship offered by mind and heart. Adapt yourselves no longer to the pattern of this present world, but let your minds be remade and your whole nature thus transformed. And then you will be able to discern the will of God and to know what is good, what is acceptable, what is perfect. So let's take our time of meditation now.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Father Laurence Freeman.